Hello there, this is Fiona, host and main GM for What Am I Rolling, a twice-monthly RPG one-shot podcast. This is a bonus Q&A episode to tide us over to the next one-shot, and it is indeed a very special Q&A, as this week I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Sam Leigh, award-winning game designer of Ananesis and the upcoming solo RPG, Death of the Author. Sam is an award-winning tabletop game designer from Virginia and is the owner of Blinking Birch Games. As well as designing their own games, Sam also writes and edits for other tabletop RPGs, records voiceovers, and creates videos on indie tabletop RPG content. Her upcoming game, Death of the Author, is a solo tarot journaling game about a character fighting for agency in their story, against the wishes of their author. Players draw from a deck of tarot cards to receive scene prompts, which the character can choose to follow, modify, or defy. Death of the Author is a hack of Leigh's Ananesis game, with some new twists to the original formula. It was wonderful to talk to Sam about game design and the appeal of solo RPGs. Listeners will know I'm a huge fan of one-player games and storytelling, so I definitely plan to do some more of them here on WAIR in the next couple of months. Maybe keep an eye out for a Death of the Author playthrough. Death of the Author is crowdfunding on Backerkit from May 14th for about 2 weeks, and you can check out a demo of the game over on Blinking Birch Games' itch.io page. I'll put a link to Sam's work and to the Death of the Author's Backerkit on the What Am I Rolling website and in this episode's show notes. Brilliant. So we're going to just start off really nice and simply. My first question to you is, who are you and what do you do?
Sure. My name is Samantha Leigh. Normally go by Sam. I am a TTRPG designer. I publish under Blinking Birch Games. And along with designing games, I also do some editing, and I make videos that help promote different indie RPGs.
Brilliant. And so, Sam, how did you get into tabletop RPGs? Were you like a player or were you straight in like, I am a GM?
So kind of a mix of both, actually, which is a strange answer because how can you be both? But I played like a handful of sessions of Pathfinder back in high school, like late high school. It's probably my first experience with RPGs. And then I didn't play anything for a few years. And my friend introduced me to the podcast, The Adventure Zone. And it kind of got me back into that. I had never played D&D before, though, and I went straight into GMing a D&D campaign in college. Yeah, which is usually not recommended. But this was actually a really nice group because none of us had played before. So it was myself and like 5 players, and not a single person had ever played D&D. So we were all kind of learning it together, which was a really great experience. Yeah. And it was like a perfect group to be kind of a starting group for RPGs. And then I played D&D for a few years, and I really found the whole indie sphere because I was browsing RPGs on Kickstarter. I was really mostly looking for D&D stuff, but then I was like, wait, hang on.
You open a door into something else and you go, whoa!
Yeah, it just completely changed my entire life. You know, you never know what you're going to find. So I backed a couple of indie RPGs on Kickstarter, got those into my hands, and was like, oh, okay. Okay. And then it just kind of, everything spiraled from there. I started to write my own games and just realized a huge passion for it and for the community.
I think we're on similar paths because I had a similar thing with this podcast where I was like, I don't want to run D&D just because everyone else knows more about it than me. And then I was like, what's this Kickstarter thing? And I'm like, what? And then suddenly, you know, the pile of games I have is so big. And I was like, well, I need someone else to play them with. I know. Yeah. No one will ever question me about the rules if I play these games and run these games. But that's so nice that, because often when people start in D&D, there's always a couple of people who have played it from the before time, she says, like quotation marks, etc. But so that must have been really, that's so lovely that everyone was just on the same page going, I don't know. We'll find out together. Yeah, that's actually quite rare nowadays.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, like you said, you sort of dipped your toe in and then gone full into sort of doing game design as well. And you do solo journaling games. So that's obviously very different to sort of many played games. So what was the sort of initial push to doing solo RPGs, like writing for them?
A part of it was because this is not necessarily true. But at the time, I felt like it was easier to write mechanics for a solo game than for a group game
Mm-hmm.
because you're just focusing on one person. You don't have to worry about balance, all of this stuff. That's a lot more complicated than that. There are some solo games that are very complex, some group games that are very simple. But for me, I just kind of gravitated towards writing a game that was really focused on one person. Like this text is speaking to the one person who is playing it, and all of the mechanics just have to serve that one person. And so that kind of got me interested in writing more solo games. And I just really like that type of communication in a game text where it is kind of almost a more personal, like one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
And after I started writing solo games, I just found that I really enjoyed it. And so I don't write exclusively solo games, but the majority of my stuff is that. And I have found a lot of interest in how different solo games approach, in some ways, that the communication between the player and the author.
Because one of your well-known sort of RPGs is Anamnesis. I'm going to say this wrong every single time.
Anamnesis. It's
Anamnesis.
I'm so sorry.
You must have this all the time. You must have people going, "Oh, your game is so great." Anamnesis. Yeah.
It's a struggle of a title. Yeah.
Because that's such an interesting... Because obviously with solo RPGs in general, obviously I know they're supposed to be reflective and solitary, and they can often go towards the horror side of it. But I feel with Anamnesis and obviously your new game, which we'll talk about, they're not horror, they're very reflective, and certainly your first game about sort of memory loss, which I think is always a very interesting topic, again, obviously with people knowing their own mileage in those sort of games. Like, what drew you to that particular topic, if I may ask? What was it that sort of like sparked you think, oh, I want to make a game about memory loss, or something that's quite precious, and maybe a topic that people don't really talk about, or talk about it in hushed tones?
It kind of spiraled from a different game idea that I had at the time. So I had this thought about making a game that had to do with, it was going to be a group game, and you'd have a character sheet, and the characters would wake up somewhere and not remember who they are. And then the GM would have the filled in character sheets. And as the players played the game, they would slowly learn more about the characters and fill in pieces of their sheet. That is nothing like what Anamnesis is, but that was the original thought that ended up just completely spiraling down multiple paths until it became Anamnesis. So in terms of like the thought about writing about memory loss, that's really where the core of the idea came from. But, Anamnesis became much more reflective, much more personal, and the memory loss much more given a lot more weight, I would say. I think part of it too might come from the fact that I studied psychology and neuroscience in school. And so we talk about memory a lot in those courses. And it is, memory is fascinating. And the idea of who somebody is and what their memories are. The concept of the self and the concept of memory is so closely tied together. And Anamnesis is also kind of an exploration of that as well.
I don't know any other games out there like it, which is obviously a massive kudos to you, and I appreciate it is used as a hack. People make hacks of that particular system as well, as is Death of the Author is. But yeah, it is striking because you often hear people like, oh, you don't remember who you were, and then obviously there's some sort of reveal at the end. I seem to remember there was like a Vampire the Masquerade scenario where, again, content warnings, etc. At the end, you discovered that you were the murderers all along. And it's you're like, okay. Whereas I feel like these sort of games where it's just solo and you reflect on like, who were you and are you a different person because of this? I find that sort of stuff really fascinating, and it just allows us to have that time to reflect on it where we might not do so in those other games and in our daily lives, just to have that sort of check in with ourselves. So no, I find it really fascinating, and it was such for me, after playing lots of solo horror journaling prompt games, it's like, oh great, it's not a horror, and I don't have to be like, I'm a terrible person. I know I'm sort of doing that for a joke, but it is so true to just have a game where it's not about, because I feel like solo RPGs, certainly in the pandemic, when people were playing a lot more of them, they're supposed to be there to be like, to give you some comfort, but it is isolating as well. Whereas I don't think you get that with that sort of game. It's sort of like, you process these things through. So no, I absolutely really found that sort of really fascinating. So yeah, I was just like, oh, what a great game. Really good game.
Thank you. The thing that you were saying about horror is actually really interesting because when I wrote Anamnesis, I mean, I still don't consider Anamnesis a horror game.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it falls into that genre, but I have seen it classified as horror before. I remember seeing it on a store's webpage and it had like the horror tag. And I was like, horror? And then I thought about it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, there are certain elements, right? I mean, that waking up, not knowing who you are, having to figure that out, that's a scary thing. And it was like the first time that I had really considered the fact that this game could also be a horror game. And I think that that is one of the things about Anamnesis is if you want to play it as a horror game, you can.
Yes.
And if you don't want to play it as a horror game, you can. It's pretty open about the genre that you play and the nature of your game.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know some people go, oh, I don't do horror games, and because I am a horror fan in that sense. I see it as like this idea of a veil, putting it over something that it can be horror tinge and stuff like that. So that's what I see from there. Do you have a particular genre that you love to run or play particularly, or is it like what takes your fancy this week?
It's more of a this week sort of thing, I'd say. Thinking back through like the campaigns that I've been in recently, and they're kind of all over the place. I'm currently running a campaign of Orbital Blues.
Ah, yes.
Which is so much fun. I love that game. But this game group, we've also played, we played Blades in the Dark for a while. We've played Monster of the Week. We've played Court of Blades. And all of those are so very different from each other in terms of genre. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. And I really enjoy playing a little bit of everything. I don't actually like being stuck in one genre for too long. It's nice being able to stretch out with other genres. Orbital Blues is the first time I've run anything sci-fi related. I guess I ran kind of a cyberpunk campaign once, but this is a different type of sci-fi for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't really feel super comfortable running a sci-fi setting, especially with like hard sci-fi sort of stuff. So Orbital Blues is kind of like my step into running that genre, and we're having a blast. We're having a lot of fun with it. And I think it's like an easy one to ease into more sci-fi genre too, because it's still kind of got that lo-fi aesthetic. So yeah, I really enjoy kind of challenging myself with different genres and being able to see what stories we can tell in each one of them.
And yeah, absolutely second Orbital Blues. Finishing a short series on that ourselves.
Okay.
Again, it's like, as you were saying before, it could be like the hard sci-fi, proper cowboy bebop, etc. Or it could just be people that's just really sad, but also has a bit of a sci-fi theme. And it's various degrees of it. And it's just so wonderful to try that out. And it's one of those games, like you said, it's so accessible, so very straightforward. And then you can go really full ham in the sense of like really go out with emotions with that, the troubles brewing and blues checks and all that sort of thing. Or you can sit and just do things. And also a combat system is so easy. Oh yes, thank God. So I don't have to worry about anything else. Just roll 3 dice, add 2. If it over 8, great. The rest of it is damage. You're like, brilliant. I don't have to worry about anything ever more. So yeah. Well, let's get straight on then to Death of the Author then. So, for those people who have no idea, what is Death of the Author and how does it stand out from other RPGs that are out there?
So, Death of the Author is a single-player tarot game that is actually a hack of Anamnesis. You don't have to have played Anamnesis, though, to understand Death of the Author. And it's a journaling game about a character who knows that they are a character in a story and who is trying to gain agency in their story against the wishes of their author. So it's this conversation between a character and their author, where the character is basically fighting for agency, and the author is trying to write the story that they want to write. There's a little bit more flexibility in there. The exact nature of the relationship between the character and the author is variable and just depends on how you want to tell the story. But essentially, you draw tarot cards for prompts, and those prompts are the scenes that the author is writing. And then the character can slightly modify the prompts. I think that's what makes Death of the Author unique, is that there are ways to actually change the words in the prompt in order to gain more control over the story as the character. but then you might face retaliation from the author if you do that. So it's definitely this kind of battle happening for control over the story.
I really love the concept of it and this idea of like you said, it could be, could it be, they're in a campaign and it's like the player and the adventurer or whoever, or is it fan fiction and stuff like that? So I like how you could put it up to, obviously, definitely the author as somebody writing something or creating something. It really speaks things, because we always talk about like how when we create a character in an RPG game, like how much of you is in that? Is it 1 degree away from you, or is it loads? So I really found it a really fascinating thing, because the thing that came to my mind instantly when I was reading your press kit about it was I was thinking of, incredibly old cultural reference, I appreciate, but like the Truman Show and the idea of someone being trapped and then they're just fighting their way out, and but all the creators around it and stuff like that. So that's when it came to me in that mind. What drew you to this particular idea then?
In terms of like outside influences, I guess I did watch the Truman Show just like a year or two ago for the first time, but I wasn't really even thinking about that in particular. It's just this topic of, I think a lot about what my characters would say to me if they ever got the chance to speak to me. Yeah, it's just like, I think the idea of a conversation between a character and an author is a fascinating one, and it's just something that, just for a long time, it's something that I've considered. And in this game is, in a way, an exploration of that, of the question of like, what would your characters think of you if they knew that you were writing them? So I just wanted to explore that topic, and I thought that it was one that other people would find interesting too. Everybody, I think, has had the experience of a character doing things that you don't expect them to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's in an RPG campaign or in writing, or developing in a way that you weren't planning for them. And I think that there's some of that in this game as well. So it really came out of that.
That's so interesting, because obviously now I'm like going, oh gosh, what would my characters, and all of them, ganging up on me? I don't know how they would react. But for me, as I was saying before, like I feel like all my characters, anything I've ever played, and so most of them are probably about at most like 5% away from who I am. I don't necessarily. I'm very bad at creating characters that are so unlike me. There is definitely like an element of me in there.
Sure.
But then you're right. Like if they did do something unexpected, I usually put that down to like I rolled really badly. But yeah, what if they don't want to be in this story anymore? Not how I've created them. If you don't mind sharing, I guess feel free to say not. Like, what would your characters say to you? Do you think they would be unhappy with the choices that you've made, or just be like, I don't know, needing that closure, perhaps? I'm not sure. Out of interest from your perspective, because it's such a fascinating thing, and I assume very unique to each person that would play this game.
Sure. Well, I've put them through a lot, so so I don't know if they'd be very happy with me.
Sure.
I feel like those conversations would be pretty tense. But I don't know. I think one thing that happens when I play a game, when I create a new character, usually I don't have characters spring like fully formed into my mind. Usually I have like a base concept, a base idea, especially when it comes to their personality, where I'll have a thought of what I would like their personality to be. And then once I start playing them, they are not that, or not exactly that. And they tend to develop slowly over time. And I think that in a way that is them kind of coming into their own. So I think that conversation would also be different depending on how long I've had a character for. Is it somebody who I've played in a one shot? Is it somebody who I've played over like a 2-year long campaign? Because I think that those characters would have more to say and would be more of their own in a longer campaign situation.
Yeah, like you said, like more realized, because you could relate and maybe connect with them possibly more. That obviously poses the question of like, when you go, oh, it's just a silly one shot, fine, I'll just play a silly character or whatever, and you don't think about them afterwards, and you're like, oh no, that the Roger Rabbit-esque type character comes back to haunt me. It's what, so you could have a whole range of people, because I'm thinking now about all those sort of characters that I've played, and like what would they say to me. And ultimately, I don't, again, like you said, it will completely depend on what happened and stuff, but I don't know right now if I would necessarily. I think I'd be cross, but like, why are you complaining? Like it's such a fascinating thing. And it's it also reminds me, and again, do correct me if this is not the case at all, That idea of when we finish our games, there's that idea of like the bleed effect and making sure when we ground ourselves from like LARPs and stuff like that to separate ourselves from our characters. Like if something happened to your character really in a session that made you feel, the person feel sad, why was that the case? All that sort of thing. And it's just, I think it could be seen as a sort of a nice way to sort of give that closure to a character, perhaps maybe if they had passed away or something had happened. You could use sort of death of the author to sort of create another narrative for them where they get to talk to you and finishing that narrative in a way. But I appreciate the thing with like obviously bleed and the safety tools in that sense, obviously absolutely highly recommended. Like it's not therapy. We've got to be careful with these games and not be like, oh, this has solved all my problems. So.
Yep, for sure. When I first wrote Death of the Author, I wrote it so that you create a character, like create a new character and play through them as that new character. But when I was playtesting, I did have somebody give feedback about how they thought that you were meant to like put one of your own characters into it and play through it. So I'm essentially doing two things. Is one, I'm making sure that the text is more clear about like, oh, you'll create a character and do this. But also I do want to write like an optional alternative method of playing, which is basically just like suggestions for how to take one of your current characters and put them into this game. Because this game does take you through a character's story. And so that story isn't necessarily going to match the story for that character. But I think that there are ways. I've been thinking about it ever since that person gave me that comment. And I really do think that there are ways to drop a pre-existing character into here. And I think that that would be something that a lot of people, including myself, would be interested in exploring. So I'd like to also make some sort of optional rule section to include that.
Yeah, I read that, you use the major arcana to create that character. So I was like, because obviously that's the same with your previous game as well. So I was like, yes, that makes sense. But yeah, absolutely. I'm like, oh yeah, I could put any, as long as you make it clear. So yeah, I can definitely see both sides of that. And also just makes it accessible more so that people can just be like, oh, I've brought something with me and can just get straight into the game. So I'm always a big fan of games that are open to like having more things. Like I know not necessarily with this game because obviously it is a solo game, but like when you see bigger games and like, oh, and we've also as a stretch goal we've got solo rules, and you're like, oh, I mean that could just have been part of the normal game. We don't need stretch goals to get solo rules in, but okay. Any game that is allowed that accessibility to encourage anyone who goes, can I use this character or can I use this setting? I'm a massive fan of. So yeah,
I'm excited about it. I'm excited to play it once I write it. So because there's definitely a couple of characters who I would love to throw in here, and I think it would be devastating for me personally, but I think it would be really interesting to explore.
So with the Backerkit obviously fast approaching, what are we looking forward to? What we're expecting from it?
I'm still putting some of the details together, but basically the goal of the Backerkit campaign is to fund the rest of the production of the game, as well as the first print run. So the first playtest has been written, which is almost the entire text of the game. There might be some additional rules added, and there's a little bit of like kind of more flavor text that I want to put in there. But it's going to be edited by Mark Shepard, and James Hanna is working on the layout, and Victor Winter has actually already done some art for the game, including the cover art. So basically like helping fund the rest of that. And then we're going to print it as a zine. It's actually going to be very similar to Anamnesis. Victor did the cover for Anamnesis too, and we have made it so that stylistically they're actually kind of similar to each other.
Oh, nice.
Which I'm excited about. Overall, it's going to be a fairly simple campaign. There's going to be maybe like an add-on to add an Anamnesis if you want to. And there's going to be a couple of stretch goals for an annotated version of the game, like a designer's commentary version.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and like payment increase for everybody, things like that. Maybe like a play aid to kind of help track your story, essentially, through Death of the Author. And then there'll be a couple of different tiers to back at. There's not going to be a lot. It's mostly going to be like the PDF or the physical. I think I might be doing one where I did this during the Anamnesis campaign and people really liked it. So I think I'm probably going to do it again. I just have to figure out a couple of the details where you can back at a level where I essentially write on a tarot card and put that in the mail for you as well.
Very cool.
So it would either be, I guess if it was like a minor arcana, in this case, it might be like options of how to modify the prompt that is associated with that card. And if it's a major arcana, it might be like a note from the author. I'm still working on the exact details.
That'd be terrifying. I love that idea though.
I think that I'm probably going to be doing that again because people really liked it the first time, and it was fun to. It was. I might have to get different markers though because I use these silver Sharpies and they ran out of ink so fast.
Oh yeah. So they have them at conventions for people to sign on very dark photographs, and they go like that. Yeah,
it was ridiculous. I think I bought so many silver Sharpies for the Animesis one, so I might have to revisit my marker situation. But I'd like to do it again if I can get it to work out, which I think it will.
Yeah, that's suggestions of just other suggestions for what the card could be if you were going to like invert it, etc. Because that's the thing. So I'm the sort of person that can sort of improvise a little bit, but sometimes you're like, I have no idea what I would do to change it. So having suggestions for that is always like, I'm always a big fan of like, oh, that sounds great. I won't do it to this character because that sounds awful, but somebody else, like not for me, but somebody else. So I like that. But a note from your author. Oh no, instantly I'm like, no, okay, it is now a horror game. That's having real like artifact in your hand going. I mean, very, very cool. Absolutely very cool. But I'll be like, ooh, scary.
Ooh,
so
boy,
And so Sam, we're sort of coming slowly to the end of our time, but I just wanted to give you a moment. Is there any upcoming projects? I appreciate you're working so hard on Death of the Author right now. Is there anything else that's in the pipeline that you can talk about, or anything that's upcoming that you're excited for? Are you going to any cons or anything like that?
Gotcha. There are a couple things I can talk about. After the Death of the Author campaign, which is on Backerkit, I'm going to really dive into The World We Left Behind, which is this game that I created last year for the Ballet Collective. Basically, this group in New York commissioned me to write this game so that it could be used as inspiration for a ballet that was performed back in October. It was very, very exciting.
So cool.
I was working on an updated version of the game because there's a couple of rules that I want to edit and I'd like to do a print run of it, but kind of put that on hold for a bit to work on other projects. So really like the later half of this year, I'm going to be diving back into that. And I'm hoping to have the print copy of that available by the end of the year. That's the goal. So that's kind of the big other project right now. And other than that, I've been doing a lot of writing and editing for other projects. The Lost Bay by Eco is going to be coming out at some point. It's just kickstarted, which did great, which is very exciting. I'm going to be editing it, and I wrote a module for it. And so I'm going to be getting the quick start in my hands to edit very soon here, which is very exciting. Very exciting. Yeah. So other than that, honestly, this summer is slowing down a little bit, which I think is a good thing. It'll let me kind of focus on my own games a little bit more. I've been doing a lot of writing and editing for other people, which I've really, really enjoyed, but have realized that I might have that balance of like other people's work versus my own work is a little skewed right now. And so I'm hoping to kind of find that balance a little bit more this summer, which is exciting.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's great. What's a big tip you would give for anyone who's about to play one of your games? Any sort of advice you would give, other than please buy my stuff? I appreciate that's always an unwritten, unsaid thing. Is like read the rules, etc. But yeah, if they're about to play your game as their first solo RPG, what would you say to them?
I would say that there's no wrong way to play it. With a solo game, some games will say this in the text, but even if it doesn't, journaling can mean so many different things. You can write a story, you can write a bullet journal, you can make audio recordings, you can draw a comic, you can even not record anything anywhere and just think about it. Or you could talk about it with a friend. So really just whatever is striking you in that moment of what you want to do and how you want to tell and record that story is the right way to play. You don't have to feel like you have to have 3 hours of time to write down every little detail. If you want to play a game in an hour and you can just think through the prompts and not record anything, that's all fine. So that would be my advice, is don't get too caught up in like needing to play a game in a certain way. You can be flexible with yourself and what you want in the moment.
Yeah, you don't have to produce something to be like, I did this thing. That I agree. I always love reading through and going, oh, well, if I got this option, I'd do this. And then, being able to think about it. And then if I wish to be able to put pen to paper or say it aloud and record it and stuff. So Sam, thank you so much for like joining me here for like a little 45 minutes of stuff. My final question to you is, where can we find your work? If you're on the socials, where are you on the social where people can come and find out more about your upcoming projects?
My handle is Goblin Mixtape, which you can find me at pretty much everywhere. I'm primarily on Twitter and TikTok. TikTok is where I make videos about different games. But I'm also on Tumblr, Blue Sky. And then my games are at blinkingbirchgames.itch.io. So you can find Anamnesis there. You can find another solo game, Outliers, there, that is a Wretched and Alone game that I wrote with Far Horizons Co-op. That one's all about my experiences as a research assistant. That I put into kind of a surreal horror comedy game.
Excellent.
It was a lot of fun to write. So those can all be found at blinkingbirchgames.itch.io. Thank you so much for having me on.
No
this
worries.
was really delightful. I appreciate
thank
it.
you. That's very kind. Final thing. Don't worry, I'll put it in. So when is the Backerkit running to? So what the dates are?
We launch on Backerkit on May 14th, and it's a 2-week campaign, so it ends on May 28th.
Fantastic. Oh, well, Sam, thank you so much for joining me here today. And best of luck for the Backerkit. Reading through Death of the Orphan, I was like, it's very good. And I love the concept and stuff like that. So best of luck.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I'm hoping to do more of these special Q&A bonus episodes in future, including Q&As on the one-shots we've run here at What Am I Rolling? If you have a question or think of an RPG designer you'd like to see interviewed on this podcast, just let us know. Our email address is whatamirollingpodcast@gmail.com. And that's it. Great. See you next time.